Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday. It's Concepts with Kalanta with my guest, Elias Hellu. We're just finishing up some technical stuff. Oof, sorry, you see, um, we're just finishing up some technical stuff, which I'm fixing at the moment. And then we are going to go live. So it's going to be 45 minutes or so. You know, it's the same format. I'm just checking the mic levels and a couple of things. So if everyone could be so kind as to just hold their horses. We are going to go live very, very shortly. How you feeling, Louis? You okay?
Oh, I'm great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we are live. So
yeah.
don't say anything you wouldn't say to your mom.
I'll try not to. Just get this. Share these. Okay, so we're live on Facebook.
Yeah, we're live on Facebook and we're also recording, which is awesome. Let me just also check to make sure that's happening. 1 second. Stop recording. Difficulties of using a Mac.
Crazy. Oh, you're in series.
Please go to sleep, Siri. I'm talking to Louis. So let me just check to see if this 1 minute's up. Great. Okay, cool. So we've got the recording up. Cool. Just jump on OBS. Okay, so hello everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of Concepts with Kalanta. Today's special guest is Mr. Elias Hellu, or Louis as we know him. Today's concept is startups and how they work. So let me begin with this. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
By way of introduction, Louis is a exceptional businessman. He's a young entrepreneur who's already started several successful startups in the tech space, particularly focusing on software as a service. He understands the tech space in Sydney very well, and I'm curious to hear his thoughts on things. How are you, mate?
I'm doing really well. How are you, John?
I'm very well.
Thanks
I'm very
for
well.
coming on today.
Thank you for coming on a Saturday. I know it's a lot of fun.
Yes,
I can't.
really.
I envisage you probably had nothing better to do.
No, of course not.
Now, Louis, tell me
No, no.
this. Let's
Yeah.
start with this. How did you learn about this concept? How did you learn about startups
Okay.
and get involved?
So I feel as I've always had a deep-seated spirit of entrepreneurship. I've always really romanticized the idea of having my own, having my own business, being able to, go in the digital space. And I've always been, growing up, I was always surrounded by, people in the tech space. I had uncles that were engineers, and I've got uncles that are engineers still, actually. So, knock on wood. So I think I was just, I was surrounded by it growing up, and it consumed me in terms of, the technology space, and moving into this business side. Where there was a lot of focus at the start uh, around the technology and using it as a hobbyist growing up. I was very fortunate throughout school and into my later study that I always feel like I knew and had a direction for what I was going to do with my career in later life. I never feel like that was an unknown for me, so it allowed me to, I guess, propel in certain aspects of my career.
And that's awesome. That's really awesome. Let me break it down even simpler because I think we all need a common language to talk about these sort of
Sure.
themes. What is a startup? Like, can you explain what you see a startup as?
Okay, so a startup in my eyes is definitely a way for, and I guess this encompasses what a startup is in a more holistic sense. But I look at startups as a David versus Goliath, story of how businesses can disrupt existing enterprise, how the small guy can actually have a voice and become the big guy. And it's almost a movement in my eyes in terms of what startups can do, what they've achieved in the past, and some of the biggest companies in the world right now are startups. In our lifetime, and and we're not very old. We've seen so many companies go from an is end to a was end. We've seen them fade out of relevancy.
Well, let's slow down because
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, it's
I'm here to be educated.
yeah, yeah.
So, when you say some of the world's biggest companies are still startups, what do you mean by that? So, is the size of the business what defines a startup? Is it the staff? Is it what defines it? What how do we control that?
I think, and I think a lot of people agree on this matter at the moment. It's almost a universal truth, but a startup now, in terms of reference and how a large organisation still can remain in startup status, is the startup typically is a business that still has that cultural, I guess, cultural underpinning of this of a business that's innovating and
Yep.
it's continuing to innovate. Businesses that are constantly pushing the bleeding edge and actually innovating and improving and introducing new technologies into the world. So, in my eyes, a startup is a business, and a startup in growth is a business that could be of any size, but as long as they, I guess, achieving the key markers.
So, like Google can be a
Yeah.
startup.
Yeah, I'd definitely still classify Google as a startup. So, getting into Google as a business, everybody recognises Google for their primary function, which is their claim to fame, and that's the search engine.
Google has a search engine.
Yeah, unbelievable.
No, okay, cool.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
let's what about the startups and this David and Goliath story is something that the average person would know. I mean, we all hear about these unicorns that come out and absolutely smash it. We hear about Uber, we
Yeah,
hear about
yeah.
God, Uber, Tinder. These businesses that come out of nowhere, solve a problem, and make a fortune. Is that the typical startup story in your opinion, or is it?
Yeah, look, it seems to be, and the longer I've been in the startup space, the more I've realised that the actual ingenuity and the uniqueness of an idea almost has no effect in the actual execution and final result of what a startup can do. And I'll get into that. What I've found over time, and especially through my career as a software consultant, is that we would get pictures from people, weekly. We get pictures from people daily regarding these ideas that they formulate for the next Uber or for the next Airbnb, and the ideas are always valid. There's so many times that somebody has come to my desk and pitched me an idea for an app they want to complete, and I sit there and I say to them, either that idea is the hottest thing right now because I've written it down in my journal 2 weeks ago. So everybody synchronizes in terms of idea generation. I feel like it's the right time, right place, and the person that beats to execution is going to be a successful startup.
Okay, so it's momentum then, really.
I believe it's momentum. It's testing a minimal viable product as soon as possible, and actually getting that product market fit or some sort of traction.
Okay, so let's go back a step.
Mhm.
All right, so I want to I want to start a startup. Is an idea a sufficient basis for a startup, or is that just the start of the startup journey?
Yeah. Look,
how many times can you get startup in a sentence?
Geez. I think an idea definitely has merit. An idea is very important. You have to be passionate about the idea, which is going to carry you through the later phases and the difficult times in business. And everybody that's getting into business is going to face the same sort of challenges over time. And without a solid idea, I think going even back to principles, without faith in your idea, it's very hard to persist and it's very hard to succeed.
I think in the pre-interview we had a pretty good discussion about this topic, and I think it's really it bears it kind of bears us to look at it further. What do you think about this startup ethos that's sort of emerged, where we all look at Jeff Bezos, we look at Mark Zuckerberg, we look at these people who've started these empires, and we sort of think that that's it. And it is in a way you can disrupt the status quo in a really fundamental way if you do this. But there's like this real hustle culture in the entrepreneurial
Mm,
space
mm,
where everyone supports their idea 1,000%. And
mm.
how do you feel that that affects it? Because I mean, I think that personally, I think that kind of injects a little bit of self confidence is super important, but self
Mhm.
awareness is even more important.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head with that final statement, Jahan. It's the confidence is extremely required in this field, but at the same time, it's that senseless gratification, and not to be too harsh, but when that gratification is free, people can gratify ideas all day, but it's a saying in the startup world: get them to pay for it. Everybody can tell you your idea is great. They're gonna pat you on the back and say go for it, and they're gonna close their door. But
Yeah.
if you can get them to pay, then your idea actually is great. So try to prove it as quick as possible. Try to actually see if your idea has weight. But going back to actually looking at the ethos, I've seen by being in the Sydney startup scene, at least I've actually seen so many startups get together, start a business, and then crumble. Not too long after, and then when you go back to the fundamental ideal concept that started that business, so that business was founded upon, that's where you start to unravel why these startups are failing, or why there's such a high percentage of startup failure. It's not that the startups, are this is a risky type of business. A startup is any other sort of business with a grand idea of how to disrupt or change or implement new technology. But what we tend to find is that the idea and the execution of that idea sometimes don't hold merit.
So yeah, well, look, let's talk about that.
Mm.
Let's ignore the cases which succeeded. Let's talk about the cases that failed. Why do you think a lot of startups fail? Because I think statistically, there's a pretty high failure rate.
It's a pretty high failure, and I think that goes back to what I mentioned prior about really having faith and loving the core idea, because it's really highlighted now, at least in the startup community, that it's almost a universal truth that persistence is going to be the most important component of yourself as a startup, CEO, leader, as a person writing a couple of lines of code every week to create this new product or technology that's going to change the world. It's persistence, and I think a lot of startups tend to fail. And even the sad story is I've seen startups that have actually been funded and they were on the right trajectory and have crumbled further on. So it's there's a lot of, going back to the actual question, there's I think a lot of startups fail because it's almost like you're a hamster, in the spinning wheel, running wheel.
That's right.
You're chasing the tail all the time. You're innovating quickly. You're implementing quickly. You're moving quicker than your competition. But at the same time, you can go wrong. You can go wrong very quickly. So there are, places where and situations where businesses simply cannot proceed.
You talk a bit about funding, and is that sort of the startup goal to get to? I mean, what? So
Okay. Yeah.
I'll paint a picture. I run a traditional business, which is a law firm. It's a pretty standard sort of business that's been existing since time immemorial. And essentially, what we do is, we all kicked in some equity to start a certain amount, and we borrowed what we needed for working capital for the first bit, and then we slowly paid down that debt, and now we keep what we earn, profit minus thing. And the way it was described to me by Pedro Lara, who was on the show last week, was this business is like a cow. You milk the cow, you take the cream, and then over time. And he describes startups a bit more as being like a pig. So you can't really get anything from a pig until the pig is ready to be cut up and slaughtered, and then you get sausages and meat, and you make a big payday.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the ethos of startups? Is it to get it to this size and then grow it, or are there different exits?
Yeah, so that's really awesome that you use that to describe kind of how the industry works, and especially in software as a service. So,
I totally missed that, but
yeah.
I'm really sorry, Louis. Can you tell me what is software as a service, and kind of what is the area that you specialize in?
Sure.
Because we've just shot past
Yeah.
that.
It's all right. It's the afterthought, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So, software as a service. So software as a service has been around for a few years. It's a revenue model primarily, and it's a model of providing service that digital companies have adopted. So to give you a comparison and actually to name some of the software as a service companies you probably use today, or most of the listeners would probably use today, Um, Software as a service essentially allows you to access a cloud-based software system or software suite for a monthly subscription fee. Usually, all the technology is cloud-based or it's the mobile app, but the heavy lifting is done in a remote area, like remote server, and the actual business model behind that allows businesses to create and maintain core products without having to distribute those products as they would traditionally. So,
okay. So is Xero a software as a service?
Yeah, so going on, yes, Xero definitely is an awesome example of that. So Xero disrupted the accounting game. There was actually a massive market gap for years before Xero came along. Even QuickBooks and most of the accounting platforms just weren't up to it when Xero came out. So they hit the market at the right time, and their business model, their software as a service, is just excellent. So they charge a monthly subscription fee, which is quite reasonable for most small to medium business owners. For that subscription fee, the business owner then gets recurring service.
Okay, cool. And what is your software as a service business? Like, what do you guys do?
Yeah.
What's the main one now? Because I know you've had some in the past. You've got some in the pipeline. What's your the one you're working on at present?
Yeah. So right now, we've been working primarily on Bundy.
Okay.
So Bundy is a workforce management system. We dubbed the name from the Australian saying to Bundy in and Bundy off.
Yeah.
So it was an awesome little thing we heard when we were designing the system. Oh, actually, at the inception of the idea, and then we started to look into workforce management, and we realised that there wasn't, and to use some of these, there wasn't a zero of. There wasn't a zero of workforce management. There wasn't a really effective way, a really simple way that allowed business owners to manage the workforce. And being technology obsessed, gurus were looking around, we've got all the technology, we've got all the right pieces. We live in a really opportune time to be able to do things and utilize technology around us.
So yeah, sorry, I left you kind of running while I was checking to see if the live stream was working. So you've got a workforce management tool that allows you to sort of, I guess, as a small business owner, look into what people are doing when and who's where, and allows you to kind of allocate out your resources like that. What's the goal for Bundy, and is it the same kind of goal that other small? Do startups fall into unique and different positions? So, for example, in our business, most law firms or most professional services firms are generally going concerns, which means that you roll on, you want the business to grow to a certain size, maybe one day you retire and you sell your shares to your partners or some such, but generally speaking, that's what we're aiming for. Is that the same in startups, or is startups kind of a unique beast?
Yeah, so coming into the actual, what you mentioned about startups, there's so what I've experienced and what I've seen firsthand. I've seen people start, even people conceive startups for the purpose of an exit.
Yep.
And for the purpose of get it to a certain milestone. Now it's really celebrated to actually have an exit plan as a founder. have a number in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Have some sort of figure that's going to keep, that's going to be the end. Because without that, and I think that's the mentality that's coming into it. It's bringing people back to reality and going, what is that actual number?
Yeah.
Everybody's shooting for the billions. Everyone wants to be the next unicorn. And it's about really focusing down, going, where is your exit?
Well, does everyone remember Words with Friends? Because I remember, I think they got some offer for some outrageous sum that they turned down. And I don't know many people who still
work for that company.
Okay, so, all right. So, look, I think we now understand sort of the life cycle, and we sort of understand what's the plan, how do we get to where we kind of go. I want you to tell me, what is a mind-blowing fact about startups that people, I'm at a cocktail party and somebody goes, startups.
Okay, so this again digs a bit deeper. It's probably not going to be one-liner.
That's right.
What really blows your mind is the ingenuity that you see coming out of startups. So how people take a shoestring budget, take some self-funding, and turn a marketing plan around to create viral marketing. They'll use marketing as a little bit for you. but how somebody with a shoestring budget can have more of a marketing impact than some of the largest organisations in the world. And that's bred out of grit, and it's bred out of what we call in the industry the hunger.
Yep.
It's that hunger that drives the startups. But yeah, as a fact, going back to what's mind blowing, it's how people can get by on such little resources and actually create such amazing things, and how far on the bleeding edge most of these startups are. You never. Sometimes a startup can be 15 to 20 years ahead of the curve in terms of the technology you can see in front of you and play with, and that might never make it to market, that might never make it to you, but it exists, and it's not knowing that technology exists would blew my mind.
And what do you love about working in the startup scene? What do you enjoy that gets you excited, gets you passionate, makes you want to wake up in the morning?
Yep. So it's really, what's really, really exciting for me is actually seeing my concept growing, and actually growing my internal referrals, and the whole experience of growing a business is extremely invigorating. So bringing on, we've just recently brought on a few more engineers, and brilliant engineers, and it was awesome bringing them on, and now our company's grow post 5 people, and it's given me a lot of confidence in the actual idea as well. So it's an inside out kind of model, and what really gets me excited about what we're doing is actually seeing how businesses are starting to interact with it and actually love what we're doing, and it's almost intoxicating in the effect that in the effect it has. So it's awesome.
And since you're going on a path that nobody's kind of trod before, how do you guys know you're going in the right path? What are the markers you see?
Yeah. So for our business, we have for our type of startup, and as a software as a service company that's primarily served over mobile applications, we have some typical marketing KPIs that we achieve. So we installs, we try to manage churn. What churn is actually the loss of paying subscribers. So you want to make sure that you're always obsessing about your customer, keeping the customer in front of you at all times, and ensuring that your product is actually built for the customer, it's not built for yourself.
Yep.
So as a early stage, I think it's testing. It's getting your application out there into the hands of businesses before even spending too much time on things. So we embody essentially like a lean agile methodology for our project management and how we actually develop our product. And what that really means in layman's terms is that we like to have grand ideas of components we can add to the application, maybe a feature set. And of that grand idea, we take down, the roughest draft and we test it as quick as possible. And that's really awesome for staying on track. And actually, because you are building your path, it's dynamic.
Yep.
You're following a path that, you're creating. So you really need to be, and it comes in the word agile in that manner, to be able to implement things quickly and then build on them later.
And what about setbacks? I mean, I envisage it's not all rosy.
No. So we're going into a bit of the darker side and a bit of the real grit of the tolls that startups and running a startup and being a startup takes.
Good, because it's really important that concepts are not all positive things.
No,
and I think that I know when I was doing my pre-research for this topic and speaking to you at the pre-interview and doing all that sort of stuff, it's almost this ethos that's almost, it's got kind of a cultish vibe that everyone who thinks about doing a startup, if you work hard and you put in the hours, you're definitely going to succeed. And I just don't think that lines up with reality.
And it doesn't. And it is a massive problem in the industry, and it it's attributed and it's associated with really high burnout rates. Experience in the industry. I've been burnt out before just through working on working 20-hour days every day, 7 days a week, and really I think one of the biggest things coming out of startups and the biggest I think focuses of my personal focus now is to take that time out, and it is to actually create that work-life separation. Take the office out of your bedroom, move it somewhere. If you're working at home and it's not working, change it. Don't really just feed that bad kind of that bad situation, if I was to sum it up best. But sorry, going back to startups as a whole, look, if you want to be successful, you need those key components. You need to have faith in your idea. You need to have the persistence to follow it through. You have to have the grit and the ingenuity to move around and be agile. And you have to get ready for long hours.
Yep.
Long unpaid hours at the start.
Yeah.
You know, because an idea is really worth nothing until it's executed. So it's about you getting to that stage.
What's some tough lessons that you've kind of learnt along the way? What are some things that, if you could go back to the start of your startup journey and just say, hey, God, look out for this, Louis, what would they be?
I would say, and this is absolutely crucial for anyone developing new products or ideas, feedback's awesome, but put it on the drawing board. Don't take it right into your product. Don't take it right into your idea. Don't take take it with a grain of salt. Take everything that comes in with a grain of salt, and please don't let it change your direction too much. I've gone into meetings and come out with completely different product designs in my earlier days. So I've gone into a meeting and someone's proposed that, if it had X, Y, Z, it'd be better for our business. We go back to the drawing board, make it better for their business. We go, oh, we don't want it. And then another business goes, that'd be better if you did this as well. So cutting out those edge cases, keep your idea clean, make sure that there's a market behind it, and
No, that's absolutely the answer. How do you I imagine the ideation process is critical in what you do. So how you come up with that idea, how you filter those negative ideas and those sort of ideas that aren't going to go anywhere.
Exactly.
How do you develop those skills, those critical thinking skills to because you were saying earlier, you were bombarded with ideas, and I imagine some of them were idiotic, and some of them were pretty asinine, and some of them are genius. And so how do you kind of because I know when I come up with a concept or an idea, I generally think it's the best idea ever. It's my baby.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's romanticizing it as a baby. That's I find to be one of the biggest risks is actually romanticizing the idea too far and thinking that you get some sort of tunnel vision effect where you're zoomed in and now you've just figured it out and you put the pieces together and you've got that's it. That's the winning thing. That's what you needed. And I think going back to the drawing board now and looking back at ideas that we had actually executed in the past, because we are focused in the software space, I think we've been very lucky in the way we can identify niches and even clashes and see where there are product market fit and fits and gaps that are around. At the same time, I've followed very bad ideas in terms of through the ideation phase looking back at it now, it's absolutely ludicrous that I've even chosen to do that. But yeah, going back to your question, what I try to do these days. So there's another model that startups love to use at the moment, and that's essentially a lean MVP test. So, and I'll just explain how that really works. So a lot of digital businesses can actually test to see market fit, or if there is a market behind the actual idea very quickly by creating certain technologies like a website with a landing page. Just simply creating like a email capture form, even a Facebook page, and seeing the traction off there. And startups are starting to get wiser in terms of the time they spend and the way they validate their ideas. So how I validate my ideas and how I clean the crud that comes through, I personally have a Trello board. So for those who don't know, Trello is an online software as a service tool again, but it's essentially it's a Kanban board, but just to explain it even further, it's almost like a pin board. You can pin items on a digital columns, and you can add awesome content in there. And I've created essentially a Kanban board where I let ideas sit and I review these ideas every month or two and look at them with fresh eyes, with no bias to go. And if I can, during that time, I try to really push to validate those ideas in the market. So if I can get away with actually testing that, they stay on there.
So so that's really smart. So what you'll do is say you'll review the idea and put up maybe a Facebook page, and if people start liking that page, people start going to that page, people start saying, I'm going to buy this product, that actually gives you some market research that you can use to say this idea has legs.
Exactly right.
I see. Right. Okay, so all right, so it's okay. Wow. And is is this one of the more common tricks in the entrepreneur toolkit?
It's starting to become more commonplace because of the actual value that it provides for the low relative cost. So creating a Facebook page takes a couple of minutes. You can create a logo, and then you can start testing your idea and actually start marketing plan on Facebook or affiliate networks to actually see if you can drive traffic and traffic's engaged.
Okay.
So definitely the right way to start moving these days for startups and validating ideas.
So does that go back to the idea of, well, you know, if you want to validate your idea, somebody has to pay for it. You need to have some sort of structure in which to be compensated for all the work you're doing.
Yeah, of course. And that definitely is going back to that. And I think, you know, there's another great saying. It's, you know, you could have a great idea. It doesn't mean a great idea is going to make a great business. So
yeah.
There is that separation where you can make this awesome product. In your eyes, it's an awesome product, but in the market, it's coming in at the wrong price point, or there's another competitor that you probably does 50% of what you can do for a lot lower cost, or maybe the product just isn't accepted by the market. Maybe the market hasn't perceived it correctly.
Yep.
And that's what we find as well. We find that through marketing, it's extremely interesting how people react to the same idea in a different package. So,
can you give us some examples? That sounds really interesting to me.
Yeah, awesome. So I'll give you an example of even our marketing, some of our early marketing on Facebook, and this was again just to drive those preliminary numbers and metrics. So we had two different kind of marketing strategies. We wanted one that just focused, and I'll talk about the actual ad content and media in this circumstance. We had one of the test marketing items or campaigns actually had a bit of a narrative in the actual body of the advertisement, and we actually followed through with having a photo of, you know, a happy looking business owner, and with the narrative. And I'll give you the comparison media. In comparison, we had photos of our application, and then a description. You know, Bundy is this awesome thing that's, you know, it's a great piece. So in essence, we had two marketing campaigns. One marketing campaign that focused on us, and one marketing campaign that focused on our customer.
Yeah. And
we found that the marketing campaign that focused on the customer and engaged the customer more than tenfold of the other one.
Really?
More than tenfold.
10 times more effective. And it's the same product?
Same product.
Wow. Okay. Wow. All right. And that's funny because I think that if you'd gone with the data to, you know, a venture capital fund or someone for funding, you know, the same idea can absolutely be perceived different. That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. And we found that with our interactions during raising capital. Now, the way that everything is packaged is the most important part about it. It's the way it's communicated, and the way people actually receive that communication.
Yeah.
You know, it's there's a lot of ethos about don't make me think, don't make me repeat myself, and a lot of that kind of thinking has to be embodied in the way you sell your products and the way you market your products, and ultimately how you actually engage with your customers.
That's right. That's a common thread in our line of work as well. You know, I was told that the best thing is you don't tell them. You show them, you don't tell them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
exactly
right.
Yeah, correct.
And so, you know, if the product's not intuitive, it's not easy to use, people aren't going to use it. What do you see the future of startups, and what do you see the future of software as a service? You know, if we've got some young listeners or we've got people who are passionate about the industry, what do you think is going to be the next step? What's going to be the next sort of evolution of the industry or the market?
Look, in terms of evolution of technology coming out, I see a lot. So we're reaching maturity in terms of mobile smartphone devices.
Okay.
They've been around for about 10 years. They've got pretty solid, you know, backing. We've got applications on them. We have quite dense application markets on them, and they support a lot of uses now. I think the future is actually looking into how companies are going to, namely the giants, so we're looking at Apple and Google, and Huawei recently, and Samsung, and how they're going to survive this trough of innovation, because that's what we're actually experiencing right now in the tech industry, at least in hardware.
Yep.
That for a few years now, it almost feels stagnant in terms of progression. You know, camera modules have gotten a little bit better. Screens have gotten a little bit better, but marginally.
Yes.
They've all been just marginal improvements. There's been no 10x products. There's been no 2007 iPhone.
That's right. Ooh, sorry guys, 1 second. I seem to have
Yeah,
spilt
it's
stuff everywhere. Whoa, 1 second.